Well, back again on Lewes High Street. Keith Hayes, Mirador Television, with their last rant of the week. Yesterday, I broadcast from the Runaway and Lewes station, and I said I would try hard to do an experiment from the train. To my, not dismay, but I was quite incredulous that on the 6:15 train out of Lewes, the train was virtually jammed. There was, yes, I could get a seat, but to be able to broadcast without disturbing anybody around me, it was nigh on impossible, and therefore the experiment failed before it even got off the ground. Perhaps I have to get a very, 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 very early train to try that, or perhaps take a train to Seaford and try it from there. Well, I probably will go down to Newhaven today, so perhaps I might carry on the experiment. Anyway, here we are back on the High Street this morning. Looking ahead, we will have a full council meeting of Lewes District Council on the 15th. And already I'm having people email me asking me if I'll be there. Well, of course, it's important that the local media, such as we are, do attend these meetings and see what's going on. But of course, at the moment, the spin doctors for the local political parties are going hell for leather as to whether there will be a group of the disparate political parties formed into some form of confederation to challenge the Conservatives over the leadership of the council. And that could have wide-ranging effects for a lot of us. But apart from the fact there was a fire on Southover High Street yesterday, the local news is pretty thin. Or at least it isn't thin, but it's going over old ground. But I did notice one thing, and that is that the county council is thinking of charging those people who need Wheels on Meals, or Meals on Wheels, I suppose. It is. You eat your meal upside down on the back to front. They are going to charge the full price for it. Now, I don't know the ramifications of that. Perhaps older people can still get some assistance via some other way. But it does seem to me that whenever the question of the budget crops up at all levels of local council, when they talk about the budget, nobody talks about cutting the amount that the officers get, which in the case of Lewes District Council is the top 5 or 6 people cost us about £1 million. At the county level, the chief executive costs over £250,000. And nobody talks about cutting those salaries and the perks that go with them. They always attack the elderly. Now, 2 weeks ago, on a Sunday, it was World Elderly Abuse Day. And I waited to see who would actually respond to that. Because, there's always people marching up and down, waving flags, responding to some issue or other. Well, the only people who did, and God bless them, were the Sussex police, who recognised it on their Facebook and urged people to watch for abuse of locals. But they didn't. They didn't actually urge too much civil action, and why would they? They're the police, for God's sake. Every time people march in the streets, it's a problem for them. But no local group raised their head above the parapet to recognise it, and I think that it's getting a bit too much, because every time the budget comes up, what do we look at? Let's cut bus passes. Let's cut television licenses. Let's cut free library visits. Let's cut Meals on Wheels. Yes, who are the most vulnerable to society? The elderly. Well, we ain't, and we're fighting back. And believe me, if necessary, we'll make sure that you are ousted politically. We're not political activists. We're journalists. We reflect what's going on. But your thinking is absolutely abysmal on the question of the elderly. It's abysmal on most things at the moment. But on the elderly, you have no strategy except they are the most vulnerable. They are the people that we can abuse the best. So let's take their lollipops away and keep our own. My aunt, or she was in fact a great aunt, my Aunt Dolly was born into a fairly large Edwardian family. She had a cleft palate. She's of limited intelligence, very slight of physical presence. In fact, she was a lady who couldn't have made her own way in life. My grandparents, who were two ordinary, decent, hard-working couple, took her in a not very large house. They took her in and they looked after her from the moment they got married to the day that she died. A period of some 50 to 60 years. And they did that without murmur, without complaint. And at the same time, during the wartime, they also had grandchildren to look after, as well as other sometimes stricken members of the family and their own children. And that's if it had been suggested that my Aunt Dolly should have gone into a home, should have been stripped of whatever rights she had in those days. They would have fought tooth and nail to make sure that that didn't happen, even though they were inconvenienced for almost all their lives looking after a vulnerable lady who, as the years went by, became a vulnerable elderly lady. And we celebrate abuse of the elderly, and not one peep from anybody. Not one peep from anybody. Take away their licenses. Take away their free bus pass. Let's try and force these people into a situation where they're so bloody lonely that perhaps what they'll do is that they'll disappear and we don't have to worry about them. What sort of society have we become? Okay, I'm long in the tooth. I'm lucky. You know, I've got a disease, a condition, if you like. I've got Parkinson's. I laugh at it. I had a drink yesterday with two of my friends, one who's got leukemia and the other's got COPD. And we all sat and demolished a bottle of wine between us and had a wonderful time. We laugh at it. But we are fortunate in our mental strength, in our physical strength, and in the fact that growing old does not bother us one little bit. But we are part of the 10%. There are 90% of the elderly out there who need looking after. And of that 90%, probably a half do not have anybody except the state. Or perhaps some distant relatives. And what does the state do? Force them into loneliness. Force them into not having any sort of intercourse with their neighbours. In some cases, their family. My grandparents would have turned in the grave if they had known the way society treats the elderly now. And they would have been appalled and really saddened if they'd have known my Aunt Dolly, if they had disappeared, would have been treated that way. Rest in peace, Aunt Dolly, and rest in peace, my grandparents. But basically, thank you both for setting a standard to which the modern generation of the modern world has abysmally failed to live up to. You were heroes in an age that probably will never return. Oh, let's sing a little song, shall we? Me, 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 me. Oh, I'm going overboard, aren't I? Ta-ra. See you on Monday, and keep an eye open on Mirador Television for Adam Hare, and for Anwar, and next week Stephen Catlin and Tim Laker and others coming on board to give you their view of what life is all about, so you don't have to put up with just my one single thought. Till next week, toodle pip.